My name is Doc, and I would like to welcome you to this podcast about knitting and spinning and all the beautiful things you can create with yarn and with wool. I'm coming to you from Albuquerque in beautiful New Mexico in the desert, and it's also called the Land of Enchantment, very suitably. Okay, I want to talk to you about knitting and spinning. Like I said, all the things that I've been up to in the last 2 weeks since I talked to you last, and a lot has happened. So let's jump right into it. For a change, I have done just a little bit of sewing, which I'm also going to show you. I'm going to talk about spinning. I'm going to start with the spinning. And I have spun some yarn, which I was intending to use for the Siri cardigan. I had talked about this before. I had purchased some alpaca rovings at a local farm, and this is about how it looked like. It's a blend of a gray and a white, and last week, a few days ago, I finally started spinning it, and it was kind of a funny thing because what happened was my husband was supposed to come home that day from a trip, so I just got comfy in the living room. I set up my spinning wheel, I turned on Netflix and got this show going, and I kept spinning, kept watching my show, kept spinning, kept watching my show, not realizing that my husband, who doesn't have a cell phone, by the way, yes, there are still people who don't, that he would not get in that day, but only the next day. So I stayed up a long time that day. I stayed up, I think I went to bed at 1 or so, or maybe even later, and I spun probably about 80% of that pound of fiber. I just ended up spinning a little bit more the next day and plied that, but well, long story short, I have 4 skeins of yarn, which I finished the next morning, and here they are. So one thing I need to tell you about this is that I am just a little bit concerned about the thickness of the yarn. I have always loved to spin sweater quantities, to have a hand spun sweater, but I have also always struggled a little bit with being consistent when it's a larger amount. So I felt that I may have changed to a slightly thicker spin in my singles. It's a 2-ply yarn, and so especially towards the end this may have happened, and that's why I ended up marking 2 of my skeins as the 2 last ones. I'm not quite sure which one of the other 2, wait, wrong, which one of these 2 were my first ones. But what I do to check, I mean, how can you really check? But I weigh my skeins, I put them on the scale. So all of these are weighed, and I did my yardage count though. So this one, for example, has 216 yards and 221 grams. Feels very soft, slightly fuzzy, and it's probably about a sport weight, slight variation, but I feel possibly that the last skeins could be a little heavier. So I haven't decided what I'm gonna do with this, because all in all, I don't think I have the yardage anyways for this sweater. I have 240, 160 makes it 400, 600. Yeah, nah, I didn't even do the math. I knew it. It's just 800 yards. I don't know. It's not going to be enough. I need about at least 1,000 yards for that cardigan, for any kind of garment in that weight. And I stopped spinning this because I noticed that the mill that had processed for the farm, and I have the card here, I can show you in a second, but the mill that processed this for them threw in, or accidentally, some brown fiber got in there. So at some point, kind of very sneakily, there is brown getting into this white and gray fiber, which is even hard to see here. Only at the very end it's very distinct. But if I get that in my yarn, I don't know how do you even deal with that? Where do you stop using it? I don't know. I got the roving, and I do believe that I bought the last of that batch, but I got the roving from a farm close to Santa Fe here in New Mexico. They're called Humming Desert Alpacas. And I had a very nice experience visiting the farm and looking at the animals and learning a little bit more about alpacas. And but yeah, like I said, this was really my top choice of roving, and I feel that I bought everything they still had. I'll see. I'll have to call them. So stay tuned. Wish me luck. I hope I'll get some more so I can really make that cardigan with that yarn. So the other skeins I spun were some local Rambouillet. For this one, 152 yards, 82 grams. I dyed this up. I've probably had this in my stash for about 3 years or so. And then there's this one, same fiber, also Rambouillet. However, I think that this may have been processed by a different mill, and I will show you more of this fiber later. So hopefully these two I will also use for fingerless mitts. I talked about that last time. I'm knitting those for the upcoming studio tour, where I put those up for sale, and because I do get a lot of visitors that don't necessarily look for yarn, but they want to shop for Christmas. So that's the one thing that I usually offer. I offer the fingerless mitts, and I offer also some zipper bags. I also make small pencil pouches so people can get those as stocking stuffers for the kids for school, whatnot. So yes, back to the fingerless mitts that I have finished some more, and you may remember these guys. I have since blocked those. They look much more finished. Same as these. I mentioned that that was a very, very early hand dyed yarn. The yarn itself was probably thrifted. I feel like it has an alpaca content, but not sure what the rest of it is. Probably some kind of blend. And I made another one, which is similar yarn, same time that I dyed this. Here I haven't woven in my ends. The pattern that I'm using for all of these, one more pair. This is definitely an alpaca yarn, but nothing that I dyed. I'm not sure where this came from. I didn't have the ball band anymore. But the way I do these is it's something that I came up with this pattern, so I kind of depending on the yarn, I decide on the needle that I use, and then if I use a 4mm, I cast on with DPNs 4 times 9 stitches. With 4.5mm stitches needles, I cast on 4 times 8, 5mm, 4 times 7 stitches. So and I decide on the needle size so that it makes the right fabric and not that it isn't too loose and not too firm. And yeah, the rest then I always knit the same amount of rows for the cuff and for the hand and for the thumb, and I work the increases for the thumb gusset every 3rd row, and then I cast on 2 stitches to compensate for the wider circumference here in the hand versus the arm. So that's the story of the fingerless gloves. That's where I am right now, and I do believe that I have one more pair that I'm working on. Where is it? I guess it's in here. Let's see. Nope. I am not sure what I did with that project bag. Well, there will be a few more fingerless mitts coming your way that I will show you before November 11th. That's when I have the studio tour open house. Fingerless mitts, done with those. What else? I have continued to knit on my socks made from hand spun yarn, my very first ones. The fiber I have used is dyed by me, and it's an 85-15 superwash merino nylon blend. I have finished the first sock. This is where I was last time, I believe. They're pretty. And this is where I am with the second sock. I just have started on the heel flap. And if you haven't seen the last episode, what I'm doing here is kind of a little bit of an experiment. I have when I spun the first half of the braid, I realized that it feels very soft, and I didn't think I thought it could take a little more twist. In my singles, it's a 2-ply yarn. Sorry, I forgot to mention that. So I decided to spin the second half of my braid with more twist and to result in a possibly more durable yarn with the added twist. So what I will be doing here is I will mark this as the looser spun and the more firmly, tightly twisted yarn, so that I can really tell, I'm going to be able to tell which one, how or if they behave differently and if they wear differently. So that's going to be really interesting. I have not continued to work on the other socks. I have neglected those, as I was afraid I would be, but I can show you real quick. These were my Halloween socks, and they're not gonna get done, but that's okay. There's always another Halloween next year. So My favorite project of the week was casting on and getting into working on my new shawl. It's The Girl's Best Friend by Isabel Kramer. I'm using MJ yarns. One U, I wonder if that is the base. Not quite sure. Didn't ask. So these are my 3 colors. 1, 2, 3. The Girl's Best Friend shawl is a triangle that has stripes and it has a little bit of patterning. So I wanted to share with you a little bit about the process, how I decided on the sequence of the colors, because that was a very conscious decision, and I find myself struggling sometimes with making these decisions. And I don't know, maybe you feel the same, or does that come easy to you? Might be something that we'd like to chat about in the group on Ravelry, in the ZiaWoolz group. But first of all, let me show you where I am. Oh, I love it so much. Look. So let me pull out those colors again. So there is one white stripe in that front pattern page picture, that where there's one she has in her original knit, she has a beige color. So I thought, well, I would really like that orange, burnt orange, to be like really in your face. However, it didn't work out it wouldn't have worked out, because then these two would have been divided up this way. And I didn't want that. I really like this mossy dark green with the next to that dark purple, and also the purple picks up a little bit of that green. You can't see it now, I think, but I felt like they needed to be together. And then very simple. So it was the question, do I start it with this, or do I end it with this? And I have an orange winter jacket, which is a different shade of orange. I don't think it would really matter, but for that reason I picked the orange as a starting color. I did decide that the green was gonna be, well, actually I know what I decided was then that the green was gonna be the next color. And I had already started the first row after the orange, and until I realized that, yeah, people, when you don't read the pattern before you start working, I didn't realize that there is one row in the other color in between. So I had to put having the next color being the green, I had to knit 2 rows in the purple first. So now I'm having a larger chunk of that green that's coming. But I fixed it, ripped back, did my 2 rows of the purple, which actually looks so pretty. I don't even know. Oh yes, you can see it, right? Good. So that's where I am. Right now I'm having over 200 stitches on the needle, and I have multiplied some of those stitches, and so there's a lot of stitches right now. It took me forever to knit 2 rows last night. but it's all good. This is beautiful. It will be worth the effort. Oh, I did not check gauge for this, and Isabel Kramer asked for a 3.5 millimeter needle, and that's what I'm using. I like the dense, it's not dense, but I don't think I would like it more airy. It's just perfect. It's just right. The cats are playing down here. They find it funny that I sit over here and talk to myself. This is where the shawl lives in. And because I have so many project bags with stuff in them that I sometimes forget which is which, I did this little yarn twisty thing that has my 3 colors that I'm using in the shawl, so I can find it easily in case I have to. More Isabel Kramer. I have frogged the lint sweater, as you know. I told you I would. And as I was doing that, I thought, well, I have a kind of like a dense fabric, but I thought maybe I get a little more drape if I go up in needle size, even though it was never kind of like, you know how sometimes when you have it gets too hard to knit. I never got the feeling that my needles are too thin, but I thought, oh, why not, since I frogged it, let's try and see and go one size up. I don't consciously have ever purchased the 0.25 millimeter in between sizes, so almost all of my needles are the like 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, and so on millimeter, of course. I will never get the American sizes in my head, sorry. So I had started the Daylin sweater from my hand spun in the lint colorway, which looks like this. It's a 2-ply yarn, and I pulled out some 5 millimeter DPNs, and that's what I'm going to use. Even though I have a little bit of see-through effect more than before, I'm thinking that this is fuzzy and it's going to bloom, and it's probably going to fill out those spaces as soon as I give it a nice wash and block. So this is going to go back on the needle soon. I have mentioned that I'm making a Daylin sweater for my daughter out of ZiaWoolz yarn, but I still haven't picked that one up. More hand spun yarn. As I told you a little while ago, I have looked at this pattern, the Fog Cutter by Thea Coleman, and I really like this. I like it in this off-white color, but I was thinking that I would like to spin yarn for this also, but I realized just white yarn, even though I have a lot of white Rambouillet roving, I knew it wasn't realistic to think I was really going to pull through, because I just get I would get bored, and I feel like I can buy white yarn. Why spin it then? So I wanted to have something special and dye something. So I had the idea that I could dye up something in a very pastelish color, which still has a lot of white, but it also has just a hint of color. I decided to do just one color. I braided, I weighed and braided four ounce braids. They're probably all a little bit over, so probably I have altogether, I'm thinking 18, a pound and 2 or 3 ounces. And this is how it looks like. I'm so happy about this. I feel like I'm still gonna capture the spirit of the original yarn that the original way the sweater is done, but at the same time I'm gonna give it my own twist. And while I may have said recently that I'm not into blue, somehow I'm gravitating towards the blues these days. So this aqua color is gonna be great. And last night I sat down and I spun a first little sample. That's how it looks like. I have used 4mm needles for this, and it was just a wild guess on because of how my yarn looked like. And the 4mm, I think these that's the perfect needle size for this yarn. So I had one funny thing happen to me while I dyed this. Oh yes, and by the way, because I did not mind white in between, obviously, I left some white. That's why I dyed this even when it was braided. I've been experimenting a little bit with this, dyeing roving as a braid, and yeah, it's kind of interesting how it turns out. So looking forward to seeing more of it. But yes, back to dyeing this. I had an accident happen, and don't ask me how. I have no idea. But in all of my 4 braids, I have this one pink spot. And so I was not dyeing any pink that day, anything. There was no pink nearby. So I'm thinking that possibly it got in because I put a towel underneath, and then I have the cling wrap. I'm thinking because I have two things of the cling wrap. I'm thinking maybe there was some pink on the towel underneath and something bled somehow, but so I haven't decided, but I'm seriously tempted to leave that little bitty pink thing in there, you know, kind of like how the rug weavers in Turkey or in India sometimes give their own personal twist to their rugs, where they make a purposeful mistake so that everybody can see, this is my rug, this is what I did. And so maybe this needs to be my duck spin on this sweater, to leave a pink spot in there. I'll see. I'll decide when I get to it. I have already made a project bag for this sweater, and that's why I mentioned that I've been sewing also. I've made a few project bags, and I do make project bags. So I may have mentioned that before, and they usually go as a consignment to my yarn store here, the yarn store at Nob Hill. And the one that I just finished and for myself is this one. And on the back it looks like this. The handle has a velvet ribbon. I always do that. And I always do a flannel lining. And this is how the lining looks like. I don't do interfacing because I am horrible at putting on interfacing. It would probably come off already while I sew the bag. But I just so totally love this. It's so New Mexican. It's the coyotes and the cacti and the little quail. So we have these little birds so often in our backyard, and they, in fact, when it gets spring, you know that it's spring because they're out there, and the guys, they're calling the girls, and that's what wakes you up if you sleep with your window open. It's so nice. I love these guys. I think they're called Gamble quail. I hope I'm not saying anything wrong. So, but that's where I want to stick in that sweater. I have to confess that while I'm quite determined on making the fog cutter, there was another pattern that did catch my eye and that I thought I bring to your attention. It is similar in style, I find, and I'm planning to make this at some point too. And it's called Pinpoint. That's how it looks like. And it has this eyelet or whatever they are pattern in the front, but what really drew my attention was the way the shoulders are done. I have not read up on how it's done, but it has these very interesting lines here. Oh, I'm not sure if you can even see that, but just look it up on Ravelry. The pinpoint or pinpoint sweater. The designer is called Asia Janicek. I'll put that on the screen for you. That's my agua sweater. I have another knit plan that I keep talking about, and I still haven't started it, but I thought that since there's a new development in the color choices, I'll show you that. So I have this beautiful bowl, and here's my pattern. All of a sudden I remembered, wait a second, you have your own DK yarn, which you have dyed up in all kinds of solid colors, and that is the Mesa. So this is the green that I made a Daylin sweater for myself that was left over. This is the color Nightfall that I'm making the Daylin sweater for my daughter from. And then I set aside these 3 skeins. Well, actually these 2 because I messed something up. There was either a splash of other colors, so it's nothing that would go into my shop, but the colors are lovely, and I even like those together. Look at that. And then I set aside a neutral gray for myself. I knitted a sample here. Doesn't really matter. A slightly variegated neutral gray. Doesn't that look great? That yarn is the 45-45-10 blend of alpaca, merino, and silk. It's called Mesa, and it's, like I said, a DK weight. And initially I wanted to make a hat too, and I hadn't even started with this. I'm embarrassed because I bagged all this up. I got the pattern. I'm not even sure. I probably paid for this. It's called Rain Brioche. It's a pattern by, oh yeah, I believe she's German, Katrin Schubert. Yeah, she has a bunch of really nice brioche, two-color brioche hats. And this is one that utilizes one neutral color and then kind of leftover mini skeins. And I totally liked that because I thought that you can have different colors shine. But of course, then I could also use these for the September beanie that I've been talking about for a while. September Stars beanie, sorry. So I could do that. But so I may use the Mesa or the yarn that I had purchased in Taos, which I had already shown you in the skein. Now I decided I'm going to give it a go with these three together for one hat. Haven't started yet, sorry. So many ideas these days, and there's one more idea that I wanted to share with you, and one more total fail. That makes me laugh so much because I recently, someone started talking about what's your oldest work in progress, and I'm like, oops, I think I have a very, very old one. And so it was indeed where I thought it would be. It was in my cedar trunk, and I pulled it out, and it was gonna be the Leaves and Waves shawl. A very old knitty pattern. And the pattern came out in 2007, and I'm pretty sure that I saw the pattern, I got it, and then I had the yarn or bought the yarn. I got the yarn from Maryland Sheep and Wool for sure. And I just can't come up with the name of the farm again, but I used to shop from them every year as long as we lived in Maryland, and I went to Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. This is the Leaves and, or whatever you want to call it, this section. And then the other color I have is I'm going to bunch it up so you see it better. It's a very dark gray with these pink and light gray, bluish gray undertones. And it's probably a lace weight mohair, and a very, very soft one. So I just have to get on with this. And once I thought about it, I thought, did I maybe not quite, I think I wasn't quite able to figure out what they want me to do. And when I sat down and kind of skimmed through the pattern, I could figure out what I was supposed to do. So hopefully at some point this will get done. Another idea that I brought over that I thought I was going to share with you is a sweater that I would really like to, I'd like to copy the style of this sweater. I found the sweater in a thrift store, and it is a style and a cut that I know looks good on me. But this specific one, even though it is, oh no, never mind. It is a size small. So what it turned out, I bought the sweater without even trying it on, but it turned out that the sleeves are too tight for me. But let me show you how it looks like. This is it. I love it. So I want to figure this out. It's this section is knitted this way, and then you pick up stitches and work sideways. And I guess because it's slanted, that's how it gets longer in the back. Wait. No, it's only longer on the sides. Check it out. This is the back. Ooh, I have fuzz in my face. But then they did this really tight thing, so I would have to figure that out. But I am not quite there yet, but I thought I'd share the sweater with you to tell you how I get these ideas. I also like how they did the bottom with this rolled edge, not a typical ribbing. Oh, look at that. They did do short rows here. Okay. So that was that sweater. Now, before it gets too dark, I need to get to my stash enhancements. First, I need to show you this gorgeous skein that I have purchased from Carol, who is Haverland. I never know how to pronounce you correctly, sorry. And I bought this when everybody was in Rhinebeck and Carol had a comfort sale for all the people who had to stay at home. So that's when I bought this. Thank you, Carol. In terms of stash enhancement, I meant to show you this because this will actually, on a different base probably, because I have only 2 skein on the Dreamcatcher base, but on a different base, this will eventually go into my stash and also be transformed into a sweater. This is the colorway True Love because this is indeed my true love. I love orange and pink together. New colorway. Love it. And then I mentioned that my husband was out of town, excuse me. And so when he's gone, I usually cover my house in yarn. So I'm thinking, oh, didn't I have this there? Oh, didn't I have that there? So I pull things out and they get spread out over the dining room table, on the living room floor, on the sofa, wherever. One of the things that where I played was the hallway closet. I had a bin with a spinning accessory with my my hand cards and spindles. I'm a spinning wheel spinner, so I don't use spindles, but I like them and I have a few still. I hardly ever have used them, really. So I got out the hand cards and there was this bunch of different fibers and rubbing. So I started making these mini, I don't even know what you want to call them, Rolex, Poonies, whatever. And they're a complete fail. I mean, I don't know, I haven't spun them, but they look kind of ridiculous. I don't know. Look at them. And the reason why I say that is I got the most amazing and touching package from my Instagram friend who is called Twisted Dye Kitchen. And I have to force myself to put the content of the package aside and to not touch it before the podcast because it was so beautiful that I wanted to start working and give it a go, give it a spin right away. So for one, Sherry sent me these beautiful, oh, they are called Poonies. I wasn't sure if they're called Poonies or if they're Rolex, but look at these. That's how they're supposed to look like. Are they gorgeous or what? Oh my goodness. So this is from Twisted Dye Kitchen. Fiber content, bamboo, silk, and merino. And then, because she's so sweet, and she thought of me when she was creating a bat, because I had been talking about Taos and about going to the Taos Wool Festival. So she came up with a bat to incorporate what the Southwest and what Taos and New Mexico colors are for her. And that's the bat she created. And then she so generously sent it to me. And I want to thank you so very much, Sherry. This was absolutely sweet of you. And here's the bat in the colorway. I don't know if she wrote it down or... No, she didn't. But this is the Taos, New Mexico bat. Is this like the most beautiful thing or what? Oh my gosh, I can't get over it. Thank you so much. So if you love this as much as I do, I'm hoping that her shop is reopened, because she was on a summer break, but she said her shop should be open now. So that would be Twisted Dye Kitchen. Let me just look it up real quick. Yeah, I think it's Twisted Dye Kitchen, all in one word. Fantastic. I love this. Thank you. So the light is fading and this is perfect. I am done with everything I wanted to tell you about. At least I hope that I'm not forgetting anything. I'm happy that the cats made an appearance to say hi, or at least one did. I know that Ike was visible behind me. Munchkin is now in the box where I have the fingerless mitts, and he will get in trouble in about 1 minute after I've said my goodbyes to you. Thank you all for watching. If you care to do so, join the Ravelry group, the ZiaWoolz group on Ravelry, and there is a cal going on for the girl's best friend shawl. The hashtag for Instagram and Ravelry will be ZiaWoolz, a girl's best friend. And don't feel like you have to use ZiaWoolz yarn. Any yarn is going to be just fine, no pressure. I just didn't know if there were any other cals, and so I wanted to differentiate. ZiaWoolz, a girl's best friend cal, of course. And also introduce yourself, join the group. And we're chatting right now about the color choices for the shawl, and I still have not really decided on the ending date for the cal, but it's going to be after Christmas for sure. I'm going to say probably at the end of January, and I'm looking forward to seeing what colors you pick. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for joining me, and have fun with your knitting and with your projects. And I'm looking forward to seeing you again in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.